Hello there and welcome to this Astranti video. In this video series we're going to be going through the pre-scene for the November 2022 and February 2023 Management Case Study exam pre-scene, which is on our toy retailer Happy Playz. Now this video series will be split into 6 parts, each part covering a different aspect of the pre-scene document itself. But before we go any further, I'd like to just go through who I am and just give a bit more detail as to what this set of videos is all about. My name is Jordan and I work on the content creation team at Astranti. Now part of my role is to prepare materials for the MCS exam. This will include our pre-scene analysis series of videos, the production of our industry analysis of the pre-scene company, and I'm also heavily involved in the writing of the mocks that we produce for the MCS exam. Besides the case study itself, I am also one of the CIMA tutors here at Astranti, where I produce a range of content from the objective test mocks through to the study text and learning videos. Now, how does this video series work? Well, we'll start by going through the pre-scene section by section, breaking it down as we go along. We will only cover a couple of pages in the pre-scene each video so that you can pace yourself through the document. First, we're going to be looking at the key points of the pre-scene analysis. Now, this will include the operations of the pre-scene company, so if it's a manufacturer's manufacturing process, for example, how it serves its customers, who are its customers, and what its financial position and performance is, as well as its organizational structure, to name but a few of these key points that we're going to be looking at. Alongside this, we're going to be looking at providing a wider industry analysis and show you how this relates to our pre-scene company. And for the industry analysis more specifically, we have a separate video that covers the finer points of the wider industry in more detail. Now, it is important that in your exam you demonstrate your industry knowledge and awareness when answering your questions, as that is what the examiners are also looking for alongside your ability to answer the question. To aid our analysis, we'll also be using some business models that seem relevant. So for example, we may use PESTLE, SWOT, or Porter's 5 Forces to give some generic analysis of the business. Now, perhaps the most important part of this video series is to raise the most likely exam issues from the pre-scene document. So this analysis is designed to refine your knowledge of the pre-scene company and the wider industry, but we also want to connect this information to the relevant topics that you have learned in your CIMA studies and these topics that you will obviously be examined on. And to supplement this, I may give some exam hints or tips that are based on past experience on how CIMA have assessed certain topics in the past. Once we've covered the pre-scene analysis, we'll move on to the strategic analysis. Now in this video, we use something called the rational planning model. Now don't worry if you haven't heard of it before, it is generally something that is introduced at the higher levels of the CIMA qualification. Nevertheless, it is a very useful tool for us to use when conducting a strategic analysis of our pre-scene company. Now, using the strategic analysis, we can attempt to figure out what the current position of the company is, where it plans to go, and how it intends to get there. So the purpose of this in the exam is so that you have a broader understanding of what the pre-scene company's strategic goals are, which will allow you to frame your answers in a way that makes strategic sense for the company. And lastly, we will round off this video series with a top 10 issues video. Now, this might seem self-explanatory, but it's basically me going through and picking out the top 10 issues that I think are relevant to this pre-scene company. And we do this because there's a lot of material to cover at this level of the qualification, so we hope this top 10 video will help direct your revision and narrow your focus on the theory that is most important for this pre-scene company. As for how this analysis specifically works, again, I'll be going through the pre-scene section by section, but I'll also be assuming there is no prior knowledge of the pre-scene. So we will be building up our knowledge of the pre-scene together, starting from 0, working all the way up to 100. Obviously, if you have already read the pre-scene, then you may need to be patient for the first couple videos as we build up our knowledge of the pre-scene company. And we recommend that you are active in your learning and that you take notes of the pre-scene alongside our analysis. So you could read the section of the pre-scene covered in the video prior to watching it so that you can compare your notes to ours. Now this will mean that you may have some different points, maybe you will find issues that are not addressed in the video itself, but that is completely fine. That is the whole point of this process. The point is that together, we can try and identify as many points as possible and help substantiate your own analysis of the pre-scene. Then once we've finished our pre-scene analysis, as already mentioned, we will go through the full strategic analysis and the top 10 issues. Just to finish off then with some notes to consider on the pre-scene itself. For starters, the pre-scene is released by CIMA to give you context on the pre-scene company you are going to be examined on. So CIMA's aim is to test the content of the pre-scene in the exam. This means we can make some educated guesses about what may come up in the exam. Emphasis on the may, there's no guarantee. So the inclusion of particular items within the pre-scene could indicate that CIMA intends to actually test you on that particular bit of content in the exam, and I'll do my best to point out these to you as we go through the pre-scene. However, I will say this, and I urge that you take this to heart. Do not pre-write anything based on the pre-scene alone. This is because in the exam, you will be given a range of scenarios that you will have to respond to specifically. These unseen scenarios will include information that is not in the pre-scene. So if you go into the exam with a pre-written answer based solely on the pre-scene, you are likely to end up writing answers that do not answer the question posed in the exam. And if you do not answer the question, you will not be rewarded for your efforts. Instead, you should use the content that we're providing here to give you a background on the various topics to make it easier for you to adapt and respond to the unseen issues more effectively. So as some final points, do use the pre-scene and make recommendations that are consistent with your analysis, but make sure you answer the question and make sure you address the unseen issues in the question directly and organically. With pleasantries out of the way then, let's get started on the actual pre-scene document. Starting off, we have the introduction to the pre-scene and the company, which is what we'll be covering in this relatively short-ish video. Just to give you a brief introduction and an idea of who Happy Playz are as a business. So starting off, we go down to the table of contents, just so that you're aware of where we are. We're going to be looking at the introduction on page 2, which is where we are right now. And then we're going to skip ahead slightly and go straight to page 9 and look at the history of the business. I feel this is important because as we go through the toy industry, followed then by the retail operations of Happy Playz, it's important to understand who the company is just from a historical standpoint, because then you can start applying the industry information and all the other stuff to that background information. Starting off then, our introduction. Now, if you're a CIMA student that has come up from OCS, then you're probably already quite familiar with this kind of introductory paragraph. But if you're a gateway student, and this is very important if you're a gateway student, this paragraph, this little section is really important to establishing your role within the business, because the whole point of the case study, and this is for everyone now to bear in mind, is that you are a member of this company. You are a manager there, and as a result you are expected to produce reports and replies to your senior manager or the manager above you. This goes for all case studies, and that information is supposed to be realistic. It's supposed to simulate a real world circumstance where you are in that position and you have to compose some sort of response to a question or query that has been asked of you. And to do that successfully, you need to have the right tone and the correct approach when it comes to your writing style. You need to role play as that manager. You're not going to be making strategic decisions at MCS, crucially. You're going to be providing advice. You're going to be trying to give information and give recommendations when you're requested to by your senior manager. And that's what this paragraph here starts to establish, as well as give critical context for who Happy Playz are, or is rather, as a business. So we'll start there. We'll start with Happy Playz before we get to your role. Starting off then, we have a toy retailer. Key bit of information there, okay? Happy Playz is a toy retailer. They're not manufacturing the toys. They are a middleman, essentially, in the supply chain. The manufacturers sell their toys to Happy Playz, and Happy Playz then goes on to sell it to the end consumer. Or at least, hypothetically, that's how it would work. Unless, of course, there are wholesalers in between that step as well. And we can see that it is a chain. It's not an independent toy shop, or rather, it's not a one store business, okay? It's got multiple stores and it's got a chain of them all around Wisteria, which is the country that this pre-scene is based in. We're also told that the company sells a substantial quantity of toys online. Now, think into your CIMA topics, okay? If we've got a business that sells a substantial amount of toys online, that means they have a website, or at the very least you would assume they have some degree of online presence. And that then comes with the potential for collecting data, securing that data, analyzing that data. It also comes to things like how you price things online, maybe differently compared to how you price things physically. Things like promotions, discounts, marketing, etc. In the second paragraph, we're told that Happy Playz operates in Wisteria, a developed country that has a strong economy. So with that, what we can do is use a pestle, look at the political and economic sides of the business environment, and we could infer that it's got a stable government. A stable government would imply that perhaps the business is able to use its position in Wisteria to maybe expand to foreign nations, perhaps you've got relationships, better trade agreements, that kind of stuff. Maybe even purchase toys from foreign countries at a better price due to certain tariffs that have been set up. This information is all, by the way, inferred. It's not actually written here, but it's just sort of to give you an idea, sort of an imagination of what this company is and how it exists. And if it's in a developed country, think of all the other developed countries in the world. Think about how their businesses operate and think about their circumstances. In terms of economic, we are told that they've got a skilled, we're not told, but if they've got a strong economy and a high standard of living, the assumption would be that the workforce there is potentially quite skilled. But that also means that there are potentially strong labour laws as well. Toys are also luxury items, so if you've got a strong economy, the presumption is that the demand determinant, which is disposable income, that may affect the purchase of toys as a commodity, as a luxury item for either adults or children, is going to be somewhat mitigated. It's not going to be as much of an issue if everyone in the country has a high standard of living that they can afford either mid-range or expensive toys, or just be able to buy toys in the first place. A company with a weaker economy, with a much lower standard of living, would not, the population would not see as much need or as much ability to purchase toys from a toy retailer, particularly at a premium price if such toys are being sold. So it's important that the economy is strong for toy retailers to thrive, or at least in this situation, for Happy Playz. Then what we're told here is just some basic information about the country's currency. So we're told it's in Westarian dollars. As a note then, when you talk about this company, bear in mind that it's Westarian dollars. Don't use dollars, don't use euros, don't use yen, don't use anything like that because it's not technically accurate. You're not going to get marked down, but it's not a show of good technical accuracy. Remember, you are a manager at this company. You're expected to have an accurate viewpoint. You're expected to provide accurate information. And so if you go right in the wrong currency, it just shows a lack of care in your response. So get that in your head. You're dealing with Westarian dollars unless otherwise specified in the pre-seen or in the unseen material in the exam, where you might get, say, like Iceland dollars or whatever mentioned. Okay? The other thing is that we also have to prepare our financial statements, in accordance with IFRS. Of course, that would be the case. We've been learning IFRS in CIMA for the course of the whole management level. So it makes sense we have to deal with IFRS. But just to remind you, that the financial standards you may know or be familiar with from where you live, so your GAAP standards, for example, do not necessarily apply here. Okay, you're not going to be applying your local financial standards. You have to specifically be applying IFRS standards to this pre-seen company. Otherwise, once again, we're going back to that issue of technicality. You're not really preparing an answer that makes sense for this company. If you go talking about the accounting laws that are specific to the United Kingdom in reference to Happy Playz, once again, it just shows a lack of care, a lack of consideration on your part to the examiner. So make sure you've got that correct when you're writing your responses. And then lastly, we have this little paragraph down here, seemingly innocuous, but actually very important. We're told that you are a financial manager at Happy Playz and your primary responsibilities are associated with management accounting, and that you report to Youngmei Quinn, the senior financial manager, who reports directly to the financial director. Now, why is this paragraph important? Well, the reason is that when it comes to the MCS exam, as I said before, you have to play a role. And what I've done is, in a very short summary, okay, do not take this as like everything, okay, summarized what this basically means. And you can look at more of this on the management blueprint. So just go onto Google, type in CIMA Management Blueprint, and look for the first result and look at the first few pages concerning the case study in that document. And what you'll see is an explanation of what it is they expect managers, financial managers, to be capable of. In other words, you. They expect you to be able to discuss things like project management, be able to use data to make informed decisions. That's your P2 topics. They expect you to be able to appraise businesses or appraise projects or products, be able to discuss pricing and evaluate risks. Once again, P2. P2 takes quite a lot of precedence. Sorry, not precedence, but it's quite an important subject area at MCS. But then we also have business ecosystems from E2, being able to discuss performance management. And then finally we have things like being able to discuss the financial statements, understanding the standards, explain their impact on users. That's your F2 stuff. Then finally being able to communicate information to other departments, discuss how they can improve their communication, perform ethical, or rather conduct yourself ethically, all E2 related stuff. So you see, you've got a wide range of topics there that you need to be able to understand and explain in your exam. And I suppose to cap this all off, once again, you're the finance manager. So this is you down here at the bottom of this chain. And you report to your senior financial manager, Youngmei Quinn. So when you are responding to either an email or a conversation, just take note of who it is you are speaking to. It won't greatly affect, if at all really, the response you do give, but it's just good to bear in mind who what the chain of command is in the business. Forgive the spelling error there. Senior financial manager. And it can also help later on when we get to the management structure, the organizational structure of the business, just to keep these things in mind. Because don't forget, you have to communicate potentially across departments, and your position within the hierarchy may affect how easily it is to perform those how easy it is for you to communicate with those other departments, or not just you, but those department heads with other departments as well, which could in and of itself become a question. Then we have the core activities. So we have A, B, C, D, E. So once again, I really recommend that you do go look at the CIMA blueprint or look at the exam technique study text that we have produced. That goes through the core activities and the assessment outcomes associated with each core activity. If you're new to the case study and you've never seen this before, bear in mind that this is actually the syllabus for the case study. All right? The core activities effectively represent the subjects and topics that could get assessed in the case study exam. You're not going to get examined on being able to calculate the consolidation of a financial statement in case study, but you could get asked about the implications or explaining how the consolidation process is completed. So it's worth taking a look at that list. And what we've done here is we've looked at that list and we've broadly thought about what kinds of subject areas each core activity most associates with the most. Now, this is by no means guaranteed. Okay, it's not necessarily that the entirety of the C topic area is only E2 and P2. There is some wiggle room. But if we take everything on average, then A is basically a mixture of all three topics along with B. C is more focused on E2 and P2. D is more focused on P2 and F2. And E is more focused on all three. So you can see it's quite a wide spread. You can't really get away in MCS with only revising, say, your P2 and F2. You actually do need to know your E2 stuff as well. Although I will say that there is a bit more of a focus on P2 and F2 in MCS between the two of them. But don't neglect your E2 either. If you have to focus though, you can't go wrong with understanding your P2 and F2. But E2 is also good to learn to make sure you understand those managerial role and leadership questions, which can be really easy marks given the flexibility in discussing those kinds of topics. Okay, so that's the end of this little section on the introduction. What we're going to do now is skip to page 9 and look at the history of Happy Playz. So if you could turn over to page 9 if you've got the pre-scene in front of you for your own notes, and we'll skip ahead to it now. Now, while I've got your attention at the end of this video, I'd like to make you aware of the other products that Astranti sell as part of the case study course. So the first of these is a series of study text and tuition videos, and these come in 2 flavors. You have our written study text if you prefer learning through reading, or you can watch our videos if you're more of a visual learner. Now to start with, we have an exam technique study series, which breaks down how to succeed at various case study levels. We'll be looking at exam technique, writing style, and planning that you need to nail to be successful in your case study exams. And to accompany this, we also have a revision series dedicated to the theory side of things. This is because at the case study level, there is a large amount of theory you need to be capable of using in your case study exam. So what we've done here is we've taken the key areas of the theory from the 3 case study levels and condensed them into a series of chapters to help focus your revision. Moving away from the more generic products and onto the products that are specific to the case study pre-scene, the first of these is the pre-scene analysis video series. First and foremost, this contains a series of videos where we break down the relevant pre-scene at the appropriate level of the qualification, page by page. And throughout this video, we bring out all the key points that could be relevant for you in your exam, looking at various topics and things you might need to consider when revising for the case study. And then to supplement the pre-scene analysis, we also have 2 videos. We have the strategic analysis where we give a broad overview of what kind of strategy the pre-scene company is using and where it might be going in the future. And then we also look at the top 10 issues that we think this pre-scene company might be subject to and something that you may need to take into consideration when revising for the case study. We then provide an industry analysis document and accompanying video. CIMA like to see you demonstrate wider industry knowledge in your exam, and this is what this industry analysis does, as it gives you the wider industry knowledge you need in order to fulfill this requirement. Essentially what it is, it's a large document that we've compiled on all the relevant industry information that we have gathered so that you don't have to do the revision yourself. And then to accompany this, we of course have a video that goes over this document to pick out some of the key points for you if you prefer that. We also produce a number of mock exams for every sitting. We write 5 mock exams for the first exam sitting, and then we add 2 more supplementary mocks for the second exam sitting. We design these mocks around the specific issues relevant to the pre-scene and make them as close to the real thing as you will see in the case study exam as possible. So these are a great way to practice your exam technique and test your knowledge of the pre-scene company under timed conditions. And then to add value to this product, we also offer a marking and feedback service. So we have a range of highly skilled finance professionals working as freelance staff for us, and it is these staff that provide the marking and feedback service. So this is a great service to use in conjunction with our mock exams, as it gives you a great idea of how you're progressing in the areas you need to work on for your case study exam. And then if you're in need of extra exam practice, we also provide a more generic question pack product. So obviously there are only so many questions you could write about on a specific pre-scene. So what this question pack is a series of generic questions on generic scenarios that we come up with at Astranti, whereby we look to test specific topics that come up regularly in the case study exam. So if there is a particular topic you are struggling with and we've only tested once in our mocks, and you'd like more practice on it, then these question packs will be a great product for you to turn to. The penultimate product on this list is a product for those of you who would like to get a full overriding picture in terms of your revision all at once, and these are our masterclasses. So these are our expert tutors who hold 2 masterclasses every exam sitting, and these essentially cover all key aspects that you're going to need to know for your relevant exams. So from particular theories to analyses of the pre-scene, all the way through to tips and tricks you can use in your exam. And finally, such is the confidence we have in the quality of our product that if you do purchase a full course from us and you unfortunately do not pass your exam using our product, then we will offer what we call a pass guarantee. So if you did not pass your exam after purchasing our full course, then you will receive the materials for the next exam sitting free of charge. Okay, thank you very much for listening to that. I hope you find our products useful, and of course I would like to wish you the best of luck in your exam from everyone at Astranti. And if you enjoyed that video and would like to see more from us, be sure to like and subscribe, and consider following us on social media like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, or go to our website linked in the description.